The movie opens in the 16th century when England was ruled by King Henry VIII, who faced a significant challenge: his inability to produce a male heir with his wife Catherine of Aragon. The couple's only surviving child is a daughter, which is problematic as a son is needed to ensure the continuation of the royal lineage. Meanwhile, Thomas Boleyn, alongside his wife Lady Elizabeth, deliberates over the futures of their daughters, Anne and Mary. An opportunity arises to marry off Anne to William Carey, a member of the Carey family. However, Thomas opts to offer Mary instead, suggesting Anne may be suited for greater ambitions due to her spirited nature. Despite Lady Elizabeth's concerns about traditional marital customs, Thomas remains firm in his unconventional decision, revealing his hopes for Anne's future. During Mary Boleyn's wedding to William Carey, a celebration ensues, attended by Anne and their brother George Boleyn. Post-celebration, a cunning plan is hatched by Thomas Howard and his brother-in-law Thomas Boleyn. They scheme to attract the king's attention with a mistress from their family to advance their status and wealth. Anne, known for her ambition, is proposed as a candidate for this specific role. She initially reacts with disgust upon hearing the plan, but is swayed by Thomas's assurance. He convinces her that being a former mistress to the king could enhance her marital prospects, positioning her to marry someone of high rank. And despite Lady Elizabeth's strong disapproval, a royal visit is orchestrated. With the Boleyn estate bustling in preparation, the king arrives and is introduced to Anne.
Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button, as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap.
The king expresses his admiration for her, and she then begins to attempt to captivate him with the support of her family. During the king's visit, a haunting event is organized, a key moment for Anne to further her seduction. When King Henry inquires about Anne's writing arrangements, she responds with a flirtatious comment about relying on her thighs to stay mounted. As the day ends without the return of the hunting party, Thomas Boleyn grows quite anxious. In a pivotal moment of the story, a turn of events reshape the course of the story. The king, while pursuing Anne Boleyn during a hunt, suffers an accident, falling into a ravine. He is later found injured, with Mary Boleyn attending to his wound. Struck by her beauty and gentle nature, the king is curious about Mary's life away from the court. Mary explains that she and her husband prefer the quiet countryside, which seems to intrigue the king further. Following the incident, King Henry summons both Mary and Anne to Tudor court to become ladies-in-waiting. This summons disrupts Mary's desire for a simple life and ignites a rivalry between the sisters. Anne feels wronged, believing Mary had claimed her chance to advance in court. But despite Mary's reluctance, her husband William was eager to accept the royal invitation due to the high position offered to him. Upon their arrival at court, the sisters are introduced to Queen Catherine, and the queen, wounded by the knowledge of her husband's intentions, silently suffers the indignity of having two young, beautiful women appointed to serve her, knowing that they're likely intended for the king's pleasure. During a grand party at the palace, King Henry makes his intentions clear to Mary by saying the single word, "tonight." Anne, caught up in her own ambitions, encourages Mary to take her place with the king, reassuring her that she has her own plans. Mary's encounter with King Henry was very intimate and revealing, and she's surprised to find that the king is empathic toward her feelings of being overshadowed by her elder sister. This unexpected connection leads to a deeper relationship, and they end up making love. The morning after, Mary is hastily brought before her family and Thomas Howard. They eagerly inquire about her night with the king, seeing it as a strategic move in their grand scheme. Their hope is that Mary's continued relationship with the king will lead to a male heir, potentially securing a Boleyn on the throne of England. Meanwhile, Anne's covert marriage to Henry Percy, England's wealthiest landowner, begins to unravel. George informs Mary of Anne's secret wedding, causing concern for Anne's safety and reputation. Mary, fearing the consequences of Anne's actions, decides to inform their father. Both Thomas Howard and Thomas Boleyn are dismayed by Anne's impulsive decision, fearing it could jeopardize their carefully laid out plan. actions. In a drastic measure, Howard decides to send Anne to France to serve the French queen, hoping to mitigate the fallout from her rash actions. Soon after, a significant chapter unfolds as Mary Boleyn's pregnancy by the king elevates the Boleyn family's status. The king, hopeful for a male heir, lavishes attention and gifts upon Mary, enhancing the family's wealth and prestige. This period also sees the arranged marriage of George Boleyn to Jane Parker, a union met with dislike by George. Lady Elizabeth, distressed by the fates of her children, forewarns Thomas of the potential downfall their greed could bring. During her pregnancy, Mary narrowly avoids a miscarriage, leading to strict bed rests until her delivery. This simulation presents a dilemma for the Boleyns, as Mary's absence from the king's side opens opportunities for rival families to position their daughters instead. In response, Anne Boleyn is recalled from France to temporarily distract the king. Anne's return marks a turning point, and transformed by her experiences in France, Anne re-enters court with a renowned sense of purpose and vengeance for her past humiliations. At a dining hall event, Anne captivates King Henry with a clever story about the French monarch, drawing his interests. Despite receiving extravagant gifts from the king, Anne consistently rebuffs his advances, sending them back. Amidst this, Anne visits Mary, accusing her of stealing the king's affection and ruining her previous engagement with Henry Percy. Mary, saddened by Anne's perspective, feels hurt and jealousy when another gift arrives for Anne. Their conversation turns bitter, with Anne refusing to acknowledge her own feelings for the king. As Mary's labor commences, tension escalates within the Boleyn family and at court. While the family anxiously awaits the birth, King Henry, unable to resist Anne's charm, seeks her company. Anne, determined to secure her position, demands assurances from the king that she will not be cast aside as Queen Catherine and Mary were. In a moment of passion, King Henry vows fidelity to Anne, promising to forsake his relationship with both the queen and Mary. With this, the plot delves into the intricate and dangerous dynamics of the Tudor court, portraying the Boleyn sisters struggling for power, love, and survival. It highlights the personal and political consequences of their involvement with one of history's most notorious monarchs, King Henry VIII. Soon, the drama intensifies when Mary Boleyn gives birth to King Henry's son. This momentous event, however, marks a turning point as Anne Boleyn seizes the opportunity to affirm her commitment to the king, leveraging his vow of loyalty to distance him from Mary and their son. Heartbroken, Mary watches as King Henry, swayed by Anne's manipulation and his own desires, neglects her and their child. Thomas Howard, infuriated by Anne's bold actions, watches the situation spiral out of control. Anne, with unwavering determination, sends Mary back to the countryside, taking charge of the court's affairs. The king, increasingly desperate for Anne, finds himself at her mercy, and Anne then begins to play a dangerous game, refusing his advances, insisting on the abolishment of his marriage to Queen Catherine as a precondition for their union. As Anne's plans unfold, potential obstacles emerge for prior engagement to Henry Percy. The king, seeking validation for this claim, turns to Mary, whose loyalty and honesty that he trusts. Mary, torn between familial allegiances and moral integrity, lies to protect Anne, leading to a reconciliation between the sisters. The trial of Queen Catherine, filled with political and personal turmoil, ends in the abolishment of her marriage to King Henry. This decision leads to a conflict with the Catholic Church and the establishment of the Church of England with Henry as its head. The consequences of this shift in religious and political alignment weigh heavily on the king. Catherine, in an emotional confrontation, questions Henry's choices. She highlights the gravity of his actions and the influence of Anne's ambitions. Despite her pleas, though, Henry remains resolute, driven by his desire for Anne and the promise of a male heir. Anne's subsequent ascent to the throne as the Queen of England is plagued by public dislike and Henry's growing resentment. Mary, meanwhile, is presented with a chance for a different life by William Stafford, who offers her love and stability. But Mary's ties to her family and the court complicate her decision. The story reaches an emotional phase when Anne gives birth to a daughter named Elizabeth. This event is bittersweet for Anne, as her aspirations to cement her position as queen hinge on producing a male heir for the king. Her dreams were shattered, occurred when she endured the heartbreak of a miscarriage during her subsequent pregnancy. This tragedy sends Anne into a spiral of despair, where she leans heavily on her siblings, Mary and George, for emotional support during this very challenging time. The narrative takes a dramatic turn as Anne, consumed by her desperation to retain her status and influence at court, devises a shocking plan. She proposes to her brother George that he should father her child, which they would then present as the king's legitimate offspring. This plan, Anne believes, would guarantee her position at court and secure the future of their family. Mary, however, is horrified by this scheme, unable to support or be part of such a morally awful act, and she decides to leave the complexities and the intrigue of the royal life behind. As the tension in the story escalates, Anne and George find themselves alone in a room contemplating the unthinkable. In this moment, charged with moral and ethical dilemmas, George is overcome with emotion and dread and the weight of what they're about to do. And soon enough, like any healthy brother, he breaks down, revealing his inability to participate in such a deception. Anne, understanding her brother's moral struggle, accepts his decision. They then share a very touching moment of sibling affection, showcasing the deep bond that they share despite the challenging circumstances that they face. Unbeknownst to them, Jane Parker, another figure at court, has been secretly observing them, and she misinterprets this interaction, believing that they've gone through with their unthinkable evil plan. This misunderstanding sets off a chain of events with far-reaching and catastrophic consequences, marking a turning point in the film's story. The false accusations of incest reach King Henry, resulting in a trial where Anne and George are found guilty. Sentenced to execution, their fate seems sealed, and Mary, upon hearing of her siblings' impending doom, rushes back to court in a last-ditch effort to save her sister. She pleads with the king, who was moved by her sincerity and promises to spare Anne's life. Mary visits Anne in prison, bringing the hopeful news of her safety. The next days, however, brings a devastating twist. Anne is led to the execution grounds. As she addresses the crowd, Mary receives a letter from King Henry, revealing the grim truth that Anne's execution will proceed. Reading the situation from Mary's expression, Anne accepts her fate with dignity. The aftermath sees the downfall of the Boleyn family, with Thomas Boleyn passing away in disgrace and Thomas Howard eventually ending up in prison. Tragedy strikes the Howard lineage for generations, marked by executions for treason. Mary, in contrast, finds peace and a life away from court, marrying William Stafford and living out her days in peace. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!